Honorable Chairperson, can you hear me now? Honorable Chairperson?
Honorable James, indeed I can hear you, but I'm muted to respond to you. Can IT assist us in not muting us as and when we are dealing with the proceedings? Because I can't chair a session where when I must preside, I'm muted. My apologies with that. IT, please attend to that. Honorable James? You see, now you are muted, Honorable James. Honorable James, can you unmute yourself? IT, can you assist Honorable James to unmute himself?
Yes, I'm unmuted now.
Yes, proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The ANC welcomes the opportunity to debate what we define as a matter of principle. When we talk of a matter of principle, we refer to how you build social compacts, of how you build human solidarity, of how you display the highest political and ethical morality in dealing with the challenges we face, and how we take a principled approach in dealing with these challenges. Whatever the intentions of the sponsor of this subject of discussion are, we as the ANC are interested in finding solutions, knowing that there are always alternatives and that a single narrative is never a solution to any economic challenge. In this context, one of the principles that the ANC advances is that of honoring agreements in financially challenging times, which requires creative thinking and proposals. It requires lateral thinking, not mechanical thinking. A second principle that the ANC advances is that of an injury to one is an injury to all. That one section cannot assume responsibility for the entire part when the entire part requires attention. In other words, we have to be holistic when we deal with challenges. A third principle that the ANC advances is that there is no morality in opting for a solution where the poorest will pay. Human solidarity means that there will always be cross-subsidization by those who can afford of those who cannot afford. So, in the context of the Public Service Bargaining Council and its agreements, you protect the lowest grades, those outside of senior management services, those who can least afford and are classified as the poverty of the employed. What we mean are those who work to hand over their monthly wage to debt and continue from one month to the next in perpetual poverty. A fourth principle that the ANC advances is that courts of laws are not the solution in resolving collective bargaining dispute. Running to the courts is a sign of failure, not of strength. Strength lies in convincing the one you seek to convince that their argument has serious flaws, and then being able to convince your opponent to see the alternative way. A fifth principle that the ANC advances is that of an ongoing commitment to human resource development. The public service provides a wonderful example of training and development, and the ANC, in its policy document from 1992, entitled Ready to Govern, spelled out the ANC's commitment to overall human resource development of the country, the country's greatest natural endowment. Therefore, our public service must be a reflection of this, not a battlefield for economic choices. Let us all acknowledge the role of public service workers. Since 1994, it is they who implemented the spirit and the intention of the Reconstruction and Development Program of the ANC and its alliance partners. It is they who implemented the white paper on reconstruction and development and transformation of the public service. It is they, on behalf of the state, that contributed to development of the country. It is they who rallied behind the call of Batubili in 1996 and responded. The development and remuneration of public service workers for implementation of economic reconstruction and recovery plan is critical. Economic plan depends on a public service and administrative support to the sector recovery plans in all of their 3 phases. Without this support, the plan will not achieve its intended results. So there is a dialectical relationship between economic success of our country and administrative support in the public service and public sector. Some of the ANC's primary policy projects, like the National Health Insurance, will provide for a healthier nation that will better contribute to the success of the economic recovery and reconstruction plan. Our greatest tribute to the public service workers must be their heroic role that they have played since the onset of the COVID-19 in March. It is they who have faced the ultimate danger. Many contracted illnesses, and there are those who have paid the ultimate price of giving their lives so that others could live. We need to honor them and pay tribute to them in a manner that recognizes their bravery and commitment. Let us now deal with the myth that underpin this debate. The first myth is that public service wage bill debt is climbing, whilst in the private sector it is declining. That dropping private sector remuneration and rising public sector remuneration is unsustainable. So, what do the facts and evidence and research tell us? Research conducted covering the last 10 years showed that the difference between private sector increases and public service increases is less than 1%. In fact, we need to state and caution those in government from using private sector research whose impartiality is heavily influenced by a capitalist accumulation path. It is best to use state research institutions that we in Parliament, through budget votes, agree to. The comparison that private sector research used as sampling revealed that nurse for nurse and teacher for teacher did not inform the research, but rather the research took petrol assistants and retail sector workers to provide evidence of dropping remunerations in private sector, and to then manufacture the narrative that remuneration in public service is disproportionate and unsustainable. The second myth is that the public sector is bloated. This is, of course, losing credibility now, but it still gets manufactured and repeated as a fact. International research shows that compared to other developing countries, we are in fact understaffed. Research from the National School of Government confirms this. In fact, the vacancy rate in the public service stands at 170,000. The 2018 Presidential Health Summit found a shortfall of 37,000 posts in the health sector. Another myth that is peddled is the conscious conflating of the cost of public sector workers with public service workers and used as a reason to constrain the public service wage bill. The public sector accounts for 73.4% of the total employment in the public sector, excluding state-owned enterprises. And therefore, the total cost to the state is often used as a total cost of public service needs to put that in perspective. To put in perspective, another perspective, public service employment increased by just over 123,000 people, or 9.7% in 1994 and between 1994 and 2019. This increase of public service employment has not kept up with 46.7% increase in the population growth to 59.6 million in 2020 from 40.6 million in 1994, and hence the chronic understaffing in certain occupational groups. In conclusion, Honorable Chairperson, the ANC approached this debate informed by philosophical and policy positions, and one of demonstrating alternatives to finding a solution as opposed to a single narrative. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable James. I will now call upon Honorable L.A. Schreiber from the Democratic Alliance. Honorable Schreiber. Honorable Schreiber. Is Honorable Schreiber in the house? Okay, I will pass and go to the EFF, Honorable R.N. Komane. Honorable Komane. IT, can you check if they are not muted? Is there anyone from the EFF who can advise? I can see Honorable Thengiwe Mkhalip indicating that they are muted. Can IT attend to that?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Komane, just a minute.
Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Komane, my apologies. Let me go back to the DA because I can see they are also indicating that they have a problem. I can see Honorable Schreiber struggling to come in. IT, can you unmute Honorable Schreiber? IT. Honorable Schreiber, my apologies. Let me proceed to Honorable Komane. I will come back to you. My sincere apologies. Honorable Komane.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can you please deal with this issue of the host muting us? By the way, it's fine. Thank you very much, Chair. Going back to the debate, let us take this opportunity to demystify some of the misconceptions around the issue of public sector wage bill. There is an impression that is given largely by National Treasury as part of the agenda to continue with austerity policies that we spend too much money on personnel, and we have too many people in government who are not adding value to save to the service delivery. To take this at face value and not interrogate systematic issues will only lead to dealing with the superficial number without substance and evidence, when a structural issue that needs our attention and needs to be resolved urgently is the nature of the state. Number one, Chair, there are services that the state must provide which should never be entrusted to the private sector. This includes the education of our children. It includes the safety of our people, healthcare provision. At the moment, these are human beings that need to be physically present to do their work. You cannot wish them away by austerity or austerity policies. Already, a majority of them are poorly paid. highly indebted, and some cannot even afford to put a roof over their heads and send their children to school. Over the past years, Chair, the reality is that the salaries of teachers, doctors, nurses, our police women and men, and soldiers, and even municipal workers have not increased in line with the inflation, and they live one paycheck away from poverty. So we must not be misled by some of the statements that do not see government employees as human beings, but simply numbers where you can just wake up one morning and decide to freeze their salary and not fill the position which are critical for service delivery. The result that workers are there, end up doing work for 2 and sometimes more than 2 people. According to the Statistics South Africa, it is estimated that the population increased by 21% between 2006 and this year, and the total headcount of government employees only increased by 16%. This means that the ratio of public servants to population fell overall. Second biggest issue, Chair, with the public servants wage bill is that we employ 1.3 million public servants who in the majority are doing an administrative work of managing contracts of tenders. That is, if you remove those that are teachers, nurses, doctors, police and soldiers, they manage contracts between the state and private companies because the government cannot deliver even the most basic services. They rely on tenders for everything. Essentially, Chair, what we have here is 2 states in one. One of the public servants who are mainly administrators, and 2 of the public companies who are in themselves an arm of the state because they deliver the majority of the service on behalf of the state. If we were spending more than 600 billion a year that we spent on salaries paying for workers who go to work to clean the streets, to build the roads, to collect the refuse, to build the houses, to maintain the electricity infrastructure, to provide social services, to clean our parks, to manage our dump sites and recycling activities, to plant our cities, develop new economic activities, to build sporting facilities. If we do all this, we will get the value for the 600 billion and we will not have to spend an equal amount on tenders and contracts. As a result, Chair, we will not be complaining that we spend too much money on public servant salaries. Lastly, Chairperson, we must condemn the attitude that the National Treasury and the Finance Minister to undermine the negotiations that was agreed on by the union and the state on annual increases. To now want to backtrack on the agreement in its totality undermines the relationship between the state and the workers, and that is allowed that is allowed us to agree in many negotiations in the past. It is unacceptable, Chair, and this must highly be condemned. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Komane. We'll now go back to Honorable Schreiber. Honorable Schreiber. Honorable members, I have made a request to IT that they sort out this issue. I do not know what is happening, and there's little that I can do. My apologies in that regard. Honorable Schreiber, I will ask that you bear with me and proceed to Honorable Ngwezi while they sort out the IT issue, so that we don't disrupt the proceedings of the plenary. I hope that is welcome. Honorable Ngwezi of the IFP. Honorable members, can I request that we break for 5 minutes so that I deal with the issue of IT? Thank you very much.